Looks like we have a few people joining us, which is exciting. Actually coming inside if you're in Washington on this lovely day. So we really appreciate that. If you're in other states or areas, if it's nice in your area, we also appreciate you coming and spending some time with us. Although the nice thing about a Zoom webinar is you can actually do it from anywhere. So you could be listening to this outside. That's okay. So we're just going to chat a little bit while people are joining. So don't worry, we're not getting started yet, but I'm going to chat with my fellow panelists. Do you guys do anything nice today? Did anyone get outside? Did you get to go outside today?
I took a break I was in between Zoom meetings today, and I noticed I had about an hour and a half to myself. So I took a break and went for a 3-mile walk outside. Put sunscreen on first because that's how warm and sunny it is here.
I know.
And it was just glorious. It's so nice today.
Yeah, it's been so beautiful and so warm. And so I spent some time outside with my family and my dog. My dog just learned how to play Frisbee. And so we're trying to teach her to like bring it back actually. Like that's the task right now. So we got to hang out outside a bit. It was really nice.
Yeah, the catching part of it is much easier for them to learn. We have a puppy too, so I totally get that. That's awesome. Carlos, what about you?
Yeah, I'm still on campus, and actually right around this time of the year is one of my favorite times to be at PLU, just because all the flowers come out, you see the squirrels running around. So that's really a big treat for me. Yeah.
I know. I took my laptop outside today because I had some time with non-Zoom meetings. So I still had to work, but I could go outside, and my 10-year-old and my dog were enjoying hammock time today. So it was really just fun to be outside and be able to see what they're up to all day while I'm usually kind of hanging out in Zoom meetings. So yeah, it's good to get outside and get some fresh air. I think it's kind of soul fulfilling a little bit. Well, I definitely want to be like probably the 77th person to say congratulations to Gracie and Carlos on being elected ASPLU president and vice president. We'll talk more about what that means later, but I haven't actually officially said congratulations. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. Was this the first virtual election PLU's ever had?
As far as we know, yeah. So that was a whole different platform. We got some good use out of our campaign Instagram. It was new terrain.
Yeah, I'm realizing too, I haven't seen you both since the election. So congratulations face to face.
Thank you.
I was thinking that too. I was like, oh, this is going to be fun because I haven't actually, normally we'd get to see you campaigning and right after it happens. And I was like, oh, this will be good. I get to actually say congratulations to your face versus just in an email or a letter. So I'm excited for both of you. Very excited. So.
It's going to be a great year.
Thank you.
Awesome. So we are having, it looks like a few people are still joining in, but we're going to kind of get started with introductions. So that way we can kind of have a slow start. So Joanna, will you kick us off?
Sure. My name is Joanna Gregson, and I'm the Provost and Senior Vice President for Academic Affairs at PLU. And I am Zooming virtually from in front of Xavier Hall at PLU, which is where I spent my first 19 years on this campus as a faculty member in the Department of Sociology. So in my heart, I'm a faculty member, although for the past 3 years, I've been serving as the university's provost, which is the head of the academic division.
Awesome.
Great, and my name is Gracie. I'm going into my senior year, which is so wild. I remember doing these calls with well, I guess it wasn't via Zoom, but when we would go to the panels and hear from folks at PLU, and now I'm going to be graduating next year. So I'm a senior. I'm studying history and political science. Those are my 2 majors, and I'm minoring in anthropology. I'm the ASPLU president, as my name says on the screen, newly elected, which is really exciting. I'm calling in from Olympia, which is home for me, before PLU. Of course.
Thanks, Gracie. Carlos.
Hi, my name is Carlos Alvarez. I'm ASPLU Vice President, Chinese Studies major with a double minor in Economics and Data Science. ASPLU is a student advocacy organization, and at heart, Gracie and I always have kind of look to see what are the ways that we can support our peers. So it's really exciting to see a new wave of students come in.
Yeah, I know. I was just telling Carlos and Gracie before this started that I think it's really neat that they're getting to connect with future Lutes, because they are your ASPLU president and vice president, and will be kind of instrumental in your first year. So now you're going to get a little bit of their personality and get to know them a little bit. So when they're walking across campus, you know, in the next year, you'll actually know who they are, which is pretty great. So I'm Melody Ferguson. I'm the Associate Dean of Admissions. So I get to play the role of kind of moderator today, but also answer questions that might be best coming from an admission person. So that's the role I'll play. But I've been at PLU a little over 8 years, and I am coming to you live from Bonnie Lake, Washington. So that's where I am currently. So we're all from all different parts of Washington right now, but we're excited you're joining us today. So again, very much appreciated. So we're going to start with a question we love people to answer, especially around this time of the year where you guys are all deciding on where you're going to go to college, and that's why PLU? So why did you choose PLU, and maybe why have you stayed at PLU? So that's also important. So we'll go backwards. Carlos, do you want to start for me?
Yeah. So as a local student, you know, I'm from Lakewood. I went to Clover Park High School, which is 10-15 minutes down the road. For me, as a Latino student, it was really important to be close to my family. So PLU didn't just have that environment of belonging and kind of feeling at home, but it was also literally physically home to me. So that was kind of both part of my how and why. You know, PLU is a great institution academically, but it also provided that home environment that I really needed to thrive so far.
Yeah, my road to PLU was definitely, it was kind of funky. So I played competitive softball growing up. I was on a softball team. We traveled around, and one of my coaches is actually a professor at PLU, Dr. Terry Farrar in kinesiology. Oh. And so when I was in like 8th grade, I was playing ball for her, and I admired her so much as a person, and she was such an important mentor to me. And I remember thinking, if all of the professors at PLU are like, you know, Coach Terry, then that's where I want to be. And so I did a tour pretty early on at PLU, made my decision. PLU was the only school I applied to, and then I was in. And the community has been so important and incredible to me. And I remember when I did my tour initially, they asked me how I want to change the world. And that was so important for me, and something that's definitely carried me through my time at PLU.
Awesome. I love that. We don't always recommend that you only apply to one school, but looks like it worked out for Gracie. That's awesome.
Well, I have a parallel story because I only applied to one job. So when I was finishing my PhD and I needed to look at my academic home, where I would literally grow up and spend my academic life, I applied to one and only one school, and that was PLU. Wow. And like Gracie, my PLU story started with sports, and that I came to PLU's campus as a child in the 1970s for Seattle Sounders soccer camp. Melody's heard the story before. Slept in the dorms and really fell in love with the campus, and the folks who worked here were also kind. It was my parents' first time setting foot in a residence hall, and my mom tells a story of that was the first time she could envision my brother and me going to college. Because they'd never been on a college campus before, never been in a dorm. So I had that early memory. And then later, when it was time to find an academic home as a professor, this job came available at PLU. And my memory of PLU was like, oh, that's where my really smart friends went, and where people were so kind to me when I was an 8-year-old soccer player. And so, you know, it all seemed like that's a place I need to apply and explore more. So PLU, that was the only place I applied. I have never looked back.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. That's fun. So a little bit of everything. And obviously your paths have probably changed a little bit at PLU, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. But Joanna, we're going to start with you. What is a provost anyway?
My family wonders that too sometimes, so I'm glad you asked. Yeah, the provost is the head of the academic division. So at PLU, that means responsible for all the academic programs, whether it's Carlos's Chinese studies major or econ minor, right? Gracie's political science. It's all the academic programs. It's also the units that support the academic programs. So it's the Center for Student Success, it's the library, it's our Wong Center for Global Education, and it's enrollment management, which includes the Center for Student Success and the Office of Admission, Student Financial Services. So it's all those parts that make up the academic experience of students, from enrolling to graduating and everything in between.
Yeah. Thanks for that. I know it's one of those words. As a 18-year-old high school student, I would not have known what a provost was at all. I'd be like, she's just really smart, probably. That's what I would have thought.
Probably.
Gracie and Carlos, how is ASPLU different from ASB, in your opinion? I don't know if you were participants in ASB in high school, but how is it different, and what is ASPLU? What should students expect from ASPLU?
Yeah, I can jump in. So Carlos already explained a little bit about ASPLU as a student advocacy organization. And there are some key differences, I would say, between ASPLU and ASB, but the heart is the same. We care about students. We want to make cool things happen on campus, and we want to advocate for our peers. And so in that way, it's similar. I would say ASB is more events-based, and ASPLU at its heart is kind of interacting with faculty and staff and university governance, trying to change policies on campus, supporting the things that the students want to see happen. So that's really important to note too. Carlos and I actually met during our very first few days at PLU because we both decided to run for ASPLU senators. So something cool about ASPLU is we have the ASPLU president and vice president, but we also have a staff of directors who get to work on special projects, and a whole bunch of senators who get to run for their positions on campus and campaign, and then they're elected to make really important decisions about the PLU student body. So I would say those are some of the key differences. But Carlos, if you want to jump in and add anything, go for it.
No, yeah, I think you covered it pretty well. In high school, I was the SAB Secretary of Projects, and that just meant that I kind of like helped out younger students to like help them support their activities and make sure that they got completed. I think what I would add to what Gracie said is that ASPLU really kind of is this flexible experience for you to be able to explore what means to you to be a LU and how you want to help other students, but also gives you the opportunity to get to know staff members, faculty members, based on your interest, right? So you could be a member of the Green Club and also try to be part of a sustainability committee on campus, right? So I think there's a lot of opportunities for you to kind of not go wild, but really let your creativity be explored.
Just to go off of that a little bit, first year students, some want to dive right in. So are some of those opportunities available for first year students?
Yeah, so what's really exciting is we are going to be having our whole Senate elections happen in the fall this year, and we have a couple of positions that are specifically for first year students. So that's how Carlos and I got involved when we first started, is we ran for those positions, and within the very first month of being at PLU, you're kind of launched into this awesome community that ASPLU is, that we're really proud of, that we have. And so there's opportunities to run for those Senate positions, which is really exciting, and be a part of our team.
Awesome. So we are getting some questions coming in, which is great. I just want to remind everyone that there is a Q&A at the bottom. I forgot to say that at the end. So there is a way to communicate with us and ask a question, because as you're kind of starting to hear, there's a wealth of information in this small little Zoom box for you to build off of. And I also love that Carlos and Gracie have such like liberal arts majors, like these great combinations. So that's awesome, because you guys have experienced so much of campus even academically, so that's great. So ask those questions down below. You can ask them anonymously if you want, or by name. What's great is we do have some admission counselors behind the scenes, Cassandra and Hillary, who are making sure that we hear those questions and try to get to them. And our goal during this Zoom session is to get to all of your questions, including some that we received ahead of time. So we're gonna jump into a few questions. We're actually going to start with some questions about making friends and community. So for students who are really nervous about making friends, and I'm so glad someone asked this, it's actually the #1 question I get when a student is willing to talk to me one-on-one. No one ever wants to ask it in like a large space because they think it's silly, but I think it's something every student thinks about. So for students who are really nervous about making new friends, what activities does PLU offer, and what are some tips that you have? And if Gracie or Carlos want to take that one to start.
Yeah, I can jump in. So my first year at PLU, I lived in Harstad, which was a dormitory specifically for women on campus. And so I actually found a lot of my initial community in my wing, in my dorm. My roommate, folks that lived down the hall from me, my RA was really wonderful. And so my community started there. And like I shared earlier, I also found my ASPLU community early on, thankfully, with Carlos as well. We had a great group there. And so that was an awesome way to launch right in. But I would say if you're a little bit hesitant about doing that, your dorm friends are a great resource for that. And also folks who are older on campus, upperclassmen, are great resources too. And we're all friends with each other, so it works out.
Carlos, anything to add that helped you kind of connect to people early on?
Yeah, I would add that those feelings of nervousness and anxiety are really real and valid. But I would also add that you should lean into them, right? You're going to go into a really big phase in PLU. And I think it's always really awesome when you kind of are able to explore that with others who are going through the same experience. You know, some of the best time that I had here was during orientation. And actually most of the friends that I have until now to my senior year, I met during orientation. So I think it's a really great time to really just get to know the campus.
Oh, that's great. Joanna, what about in like a classroom setting? Are there ways that are encourage community?
Absolutely. I think the first thing that happens is that faculty consider themselves part of the community as well, and they are interested in building community with students. So your faculty will get to know your names, right? They will learn who you are, and that will happen in the context of a class, which means students learn each other's names. Your faculty will facilitate group projects. They'll facilitate small discussion opportunities. And I think this is important for students who might live off campus and commute to know there's a way for you to get engaged as well, right? You may not be involved in every club, every organization. You will be in classes, and there will be community building that happens in classes as well. And your faculty want that to happen. They will facilitate that happening.
Yeah, I think that's so valuable to know. And I know a lot of you have already picked PLU, and some of it is because of the community you've already felt. And it is a place where people, I think, really do want to get to know each other. And I love getting to know the students as much as anyone else. And I work in admission. So, you know, it's fun to get out and actually connect with young people on campus and get to know what they're about and how they're going to change the world. So that's great. Carlos, I'm going to have you start with this one because you're local. So we're going to start with your perspective. What's the relationship like between PLU and Parkland? Kind of how do you feel that relationship is?
I feel like there's a lot of history and legacy between PLU and Parkland. So I do want to acknowledge and honor that. But I also feel like in the future, a lot of my peers and kind of the leaders that I see growing up want to build more bridges with PLU, Parkland, Bright, Spanaway, a lot of the local people who are around here, not just because it's good for the community, but because I think it really does enhance the way that we coexist with each other. A lot of folks sometimes have misconceptions about how safe it is around PLU. And I think those don't always stand up to bar, right? For the most part, I think PLU doesn't just feel like home, but it does feel like a safe space. We have a great campus safety team. And, you know, there's also, you know, the county sheriff who helps campus safety and also the community. So that's kind of what I pick up around Parkland. Yeah. What do you think, Gracie?
Yeah, I would say one thing that's been really cool with ASPLU, we've gotten to have great events with the community. I do a lot of voter registration work on campus especially, and we've been able to make some incredible connections with the community. And also as a political science major, I've been able to work on some great campaigns for candidates from the Parkland area. So that's been a really cool opportunity and a way to connect with the community and build those bridges between PLU and Parkland.
Yeah. Joanna, anything from the kind of academic side that you can think of that might be helpful to share?
Yeah, I mean, some of this is going to look a little bit different in the coming year, but that doesn't mean it's not going to still happen. So the kinds of events I can think of that engage community members in the academic division are things like lectures, right? We have some famous author of a children's book come And it's for our students so they can learn from this expert in the field. That's also for the community. It's for kids in K-12 in the area. It's for parents, it's for grandparents. And we do a lot of those things where we have events that are educational, and our mission is not just to educate our own, it's to educate our community. You know, we believe in thoughtful inquiry for an entire lifetime. So there are events like that, and then fun events. I think, Gracie and Carlos, you were students when we had the eclipse. Were you? I don't remember, or maybe that was right before you both started. And we had an event in Red Square that
was fun.
Remember that? Faculty and staff and community members, and we had those shoebox things. That's the kind of thing we do, where the town gown division isn't there. We're having an event, all are welcome. And obviously, again, some of that's going to need to look a little different this year, but it will always be a priority for us, and we'll find ways to achieve that.
Yeah, I think that's so important, because we are in an area that that I think is so rich and like valuable to our educational experience. And so kind of being able to have that good relationship is so important. All right, here's a fun one. This is always one of my favorite, because I always learn something new about PLU, because a new class or faculty member. But we're gonna start with the students. Gracie, what's been your favorite class on campus, and why?
Oh man, I have so many answers. Oh boy, okay. The one that's coming to the top of my head, in the fall, I took an incredible class. I'm in IHON, I'm in the International Honors Program, and I took a class all on the year 1968 with Peter Grosvenor, and it was so fun. So we looked at the year 1968 from a variety of different angles. We talked about the political history, the economic angle. It was such a great class. And we also got to listen to new music every day. So we picked a different 60s song every day to listen to. That was so fun. And it was such a great example of interdisciplinary education, but also multimedia education. And we were in a small group. That was probably my favorite class. I loved that one.
I've been thinking I need to splice all of these panels we've done and just send the faculty members like these moments, because they probably would love to hear these things.
They would, yeah.
Carlos, what about you?
One of my favorite classes, I think, was Design for Non-Designers with Professor J.P. Avila, my first year. Only because, one, I was doing sketches for homework when my friends were doing 20 pages of reading. But two, because that class really kind of helped me gain some confidence in the classroom as an incoming high school student, because I didn't know that I could apply, for graphic design concepts and skills as someone who hadn't studied that before, right? Or who didn't have a lot of background in it. So, working with faculty and my peers to be able to get my assignments done and work through projects on skills that I hadn't really practiced with, on tools that were already very basic to me, was a huge kind of push for me to be able to, have more confidence in the classroom, to connect more with my peers and to ask more questions to my faculty.
Yeah, that's awesome. So Joanna, you probably see this question coming. I know you're not teaching now, but what was your favorite class to teach?
I've got an answer. And of course, if anybody watching is one of my alum, it was your class, of course. I mean that because I love every class I've taught, and each class takes on its own personality. Yeah. But when I think about like classes that have moments, right? That those things that will linger with you forever. I think about my J-term classes where I've led students in a study away experience. And the most significant one would be the class I took to the United Kingdom. It was called Crime and Punishment in the United Kingdom. I'm a sociologist with some specialties in deviance and criminology. And that was a class where we took 15 students with us to England and Scotland and looked at jails and the bobbies, right? Their police officers, and learned about why they don't have guns, and learned about their court system. And our students got to wear those white wigs. So it was transformational for students, which as a teacher is what you live for, is seeing students learn right in front of you, seeing the wheels turn. And on a personal level, it was really special. My dad was from England, and getting to go back and experience his homeland with students was something I'll never forget.
That's awesome. I know. Gracie or Carlos, did either of you study away?
I studied away. I did the Oxford program.
Oh, nice. Okay, awesome. Carlos?
No, I've been on campus.
Yeah, that's okay. I know. And at PLU, you get apologetic when you don't study away. Like, it's kind of a funny thing, but not 100% of students study away.
And the other classes I would list that were most influential would be J-term on campus, because those are intense and that's all you're thinking about is a particular topic, and you become a little mini community for that month.
Yeah, awesome. All right, we have a question specifically for Gracie. So sometimes we get some really specific questions, but if we think it might be helpful for others to hear, we want to put them out there. So Tori has asked, what was it like to live in Harstad? Could you share your experience? I'm wondering if Tori has been assigned to Harstad, so she wants to know.
Yeah, I'm thinking back, remembering my first year. I remember one thing that was really cool about Harstad. I was on the RHC, which is the Residence Hall Council, so I got to plan some cool events. We did a cool like Halloween event. We always had so much happening in that building. So in terms of events that were happening, which happened in most of the dorms, really exciting. But we also got to do some events specifically for women in our dorm, which was really cool. Having a space like that is so important and was really valuable for my experience coming in. Like I shared already, the community was really incredible too, and there was just such a focus on kind of gender justice, which I really appreciated and definitely guided my time in ASPLU my first year, my conversations in class my first year. So Harstad was wonderful, and it's cool because you've got so many other folks there who care about the same things that you care about. So that's why I loved Harstad, was it was an opportunity to engage with women who were similar to me and who cared about the same things that I cared about.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Hopefully that was helpful, Tori. Have either of you had a job on campus? Yeah. So can you describe kind of the job that you've had, and maybe like, how does your job work into your academic schedule, and when did you get that job? Just a little bit about your experience of working on campus.
Chris, you want to jump in first?
Yeah, I worked at the Center for Gender Equity my second year. I did a lot of volunteering my first year, and I've been ASPLU throughout. So kind of what I would say is, don't be afraid to take chances and take some leaps of faith if your heart's in it and if you find a passion for it. But I think part of being at PLU and part of being at college is finding that balance and understanding, you know, what are the battles that you want to pick and where do you really get that life-giving energy, right? So just chasing those life-giving activities that that you find at PLU, that would be my advice.
Yeah.
And like Carlos, I've had ASPLU related jobs, but also I've done a couple other cool things. My first year, just a couple months that I had spent on campus, and I applied for a job as an instructional design assistant, which is kind of a fancy name for, I worked on PowerPoints and graphic design to help faculty use some of the technological resources we have on campus, which sounds a little bit mundane, but it was really exciting because I got to work with a range of faculty and staff on really important stuff. I got to like flex my graphic design muscles, which was exciting. And so that was a great job my first year and a half. And I also this year did a job as a humanities social media intern. So for the Division of Humanities, I got to curate some fun tweets and some Facebook stuff. I also did the same with IHON. And what was so fun about it is that was a job that I got to kind of really make my own. I was the first person to do it, so I got to connect with community in that way, which is really important. And I'd echo, of course, Carlos's advice. And also, there's a range of things you can do on campus, so you can definitely find something that suits you really well. And it's a really valuable part of the PLU experience. Our on-campus job opportunities are super cool, and there's such a wide range.
Yeah, I have a lot of families who sometimes ask, like, should we wait? Should we let them like transition to college? And my answer is always no. Like, if you want to get a job on campus, go for it, because we do find that students who work on campus actually feel more connected. They get better grades. Like, we don't want you to work too much, right? Carlos talked about balance, which is important. But there's kind of a nice sweet spot. And I think that's what's nice about on-campus jobs is there's some that are 2 hours a week. There's some that are 10 hours a week, but you can only work up to 20. So you can't go more than that. So there's a nice kind of range that you can find, and they work around your schedule and your breaks. They respect that you're a student, but you get to meet another group of students. So when we're talking about community, There's usually other students sometimes working there. You get to meet some staff you maybe wouldn't have, or faculty that you wouldn't have met otherwise. So you start building those layers of kind of PLU community. So I would not shy away from working on campus. I really think it can actually be helpful if done with balance in mind, especially kind of at the beginning. And then you'll figure out what you really love and maybe draw back here and add there. But if I hadn't worked on campus, I'd never be a director of admission. Like, it also helped me find my vocation. So it can also be really great for some people. I don't know, Joanna, do you feel the same way?
Yeah, you know, I hadn't thought about it before, but my job as an undergrad, I worked in the Office of Survey Research in the Department of Sociology at my undergraduate institution. And it was not part of some master plan that someday I'm going to get a PhD in sociology and teach sociology. It was just following my interests, right?
Yeah.
I need some money. And that was one interest. I need a job. And two, I'm really interested in sociology, and there's a position there. And then one thing led to another. And I'm positive that experience helped me get into grad school.
Yeah. So don't shy away from it. There's easy ways to look for it. If you need to learn how to like search for jobs, just contact your admission counselor. We can help you out. So great people on campus. This question is specific for the current students because I don't know if I can think that far back. How are PLU classes different from high school classes?
Boy, it's wildly different. I'm also trying to remember back.
Now all you know is PLU classes.
I know, yeah, exactly. I mean, I remember when I was in high school, I did a lot of AP classes. So I did all of the AP history classes, and I was not a big fan. I was like, who cares about history? I can't imagine myself ever. And now I'm a history major. And that is all because I had some incredible professors who allowed us to have dialogue and conversation about history, for example. We got to interrogate and question it and imagine what history looked like, and that was such a vastly different experience than what I had in high school. And so that was something that, I mean, again, changed my vocation, something that really charged me and made me excited to learn. And I've experienced that with almost all of the classes that I've taken. It's just been really energizing, and an opportunity to work in small groups as well has been really nice. All of my professors know my name. I visit them in their office hours. They know me so well, and so that's something that's been really, really valuable for me.
Anything to add, Carlos?
Yeah, I would add that I feel like the biggest difference that I see is just the wide range and scope of things that you can do with the tools that you learn inside the classroom, right? Because I feel like oftentimes in high school, I was more worried about how I would do on that AP test and less about how much I learned about, you know, human geography and the concepts around it, right? So I felt like here at PLU, I've been challenged more to learn about how I can take that class content and, you know, think about it in my everyday life, how I see it, you know, on social media, how I see it in work. So I feel like definitely PLU has given me those inquiry skills to be asking further and deeper questions.
Awesome. So this is any tips for move-in day? Again, we're asking you to think back, I know, but obviously they're all thinking about coming to PLU. So what are some maybe tips for move-in day or that kind of time frame?
Move-in day was exciting. There was a whole lot going on. Definitely when I think back, like I said, I'm from Olympia, so that's just kind of a short drive from PLU. And one thing that I kind of had to remind myself is it's okay to overpack because someone will be able to drive stuff home if I pack too much. But if you don't have that luxury, I think one important thing to remember, there's lots of stores nearby. There's like a Fred Meyer, then a Target. So you can go and pick up whatever additional items you need. So calm down, you're good. That hopefully that eases some anxiety. And I think the other thing I would say is if there are folks who are bringing you to campus, parents or siblings or friends, just make sure they have their time to kind of be with you and experience that with you. It's stressful for everyone involved, but giving them that grace and acknowledging what a big step and milestone that is important.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say deep breaths. You know, everything's going to be okay. And
you know, one
also,
of the parents last night said it was exhausting.
I would also add that you'll have a whole semester to kind of adjust and adapt to campus. So I think you'll know kind of what you'll need and what you want towards the end of the semester when you're adapting.
Did anyone get lost on their first day on campus, and how quickly did you figure out where to go?
Oh yeah, the students are great. They'll just tell you exactly where you need to be, and that's one of the best parts of move-in days. You meet people right away who are helping you find your way around.
Yeah, it's a pretty laid out campus. So I think on the first, week, it can seem like it's going to be hard to figure out, but I think it pretty quickly kind of establishes itself in your mind. And now we do have actual wayfinding signs on campus. So when you guys started 4 years ago, you just had to figure it out. But now there's lots of helpful students and signs to help you. What's a favorite PLU tradition? So something maybe that's every year happens and you look really forward to it.
I'm going to start with that one.
Yeah, go ahead.
For me, it's commencement.
Mm.
And there's a couple reasons why it's special. I don't know if students necessarily realize how influential they are for faculty. We appreciate it when you say we've been influential to you, but we don't know if you know it works the other way around. And so when we meet you, whether you come in as a first-year student or a transfer student with credits, we realize we're part of a really significant time in your life, this launching period, and we see you blossom and transform. I think of like Carlos, I've known you since you were a first-year student. And we see that, and when we see you walk across that stage, I mean, we cry because it means so much to us. I love commencement. As provost, I also love it because I get to, we have a gong that we ring at commencement and I get to hit it. So that's also really fun. I have to get like a running start practically because the gong itself is giant. So that's the fun part of commencement, but the emotional part is like watching our students succeed. That's why we're in this. I love it.
Yeah.
Something a little bit different than that, though. I don't remember much about my commencement. It was again in that move-in period, so it's a little bit hectic. But on a different note, one thing that I love that happens every year is we have our J-term book group. So we've talked a bit about J-term already, which is the month of January. And so one thing that we have on campus, an event sponsored by the Diversity Center, is J-term book group. So they pick a book, everybody gets a copy of the book, and we meet once a week to chat about it. And it's a really cool opportunity to build community. There's staff and faculty in there, but you also get to learn a lot about what you're reading. So it's usually the book is usually related to themes of diversity, justice, and or sustainability. So it's a really exciting read and an awesome conversation. So that's one of my favorites.
Yeah, I don't know. It's always hard to pick, actually, but yeah, move-in day is my favorite. So we've already talked about that. Carlos, any other day that comes to mind for you?
I don't remember the specific title for the day, but it's during orientation when all the faculty put on their, doctorate gowns. As a first year, first in the family student, I felt like I was going to Hogwarts or something, just because, seeing all the faculty in their attire and then all the students walking in, it just feels very surreal. So as a first year student, that was kind of like the most memorable thing that I have.
Yeah. So that's convocation.
Yeah.
And that's the bookend to commencement. So you come in with convocation and the faculty line the walkway, right? And we applaud you as you walk through. And then at commencement, you'll see next year when you come through, we applaud you again. Yeah. And it's the bookends to the beginning and end of your journey with us.
So this question is a little, I actually know the percentage, so I'll answer that part of it, but what percentage of PLU students come from Washington and what other states are heavily represented, kind of where do you have friends from? So we are about 65-35, so 65% of our students come from Washington, although I always like to caveat that Portland is closer than Spokane. So, so if you're not familiar with Washington, that's Eastern Washington. So some of our students who are out of state are actually more local than some of our in-state students. So it's kind of a fun balance. Some of the states that are more heavily represented are Hawaii, Oregon, Colorado, Alaska. We are very kind of Western regional, but do get some really great students from places like Maryland and Texas and Florida who find us for one reason or another and end up being really successful on campus. But hopefully the students, it's funny because when you see like ASPLU or some of our student government, there's people from everywhere. So it doesn't always feel so Washington heavy. Depends on the moment. All right, so I think we just have a couple more probably questions. Is it tough to balance a lot of activities? Carlos, you talked about the need to find balance. Do you want to talk about that a little bit more?
Yeah, I think at PLU, you know, everyone encourages you to find your vocation, right? Where your deepest passion meets the world's greatest needs. And for me, I think as a student at PLU, I took that as a challenge. You know, I was like, okay, you know, I'll find it. And I think part of the PLU experience is also kind of part of the moving into adulthood experience. And, you know, you have to pay taxes and you got to think about this and you got to think about that, right? So I would just add that, like, part of the PLU experience is also kind of coming to self experience. And coming to self is also finding that balance, right? You want to be able to have a successful career. You want to be able to have to have time for your family and for your friends, right? All of that is part of what you have to think about. And I think it's really beautiful that you get to do that with people who are doing the same thing, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what college is for, right? It's that transition from like K through 12 and you know, your youth to kind of adulthood. It's like a nice place to build those skills that you need eventually, right? And do it in a safe environment where it's okay to mess up a little bit and maybe take on too much or maybe take on too little and kind of figure it out. But I do think sometimes you have to kind of dive in and then pull back, right? Once you figure out where your connections are. So we did get a number of questions ahead of time through social media and email. So we're going to take on a few of those questions. And a reminder, there is a Q&A box, but we are kind of nearing the end of this. But don't worry, we will always follow up if there's a question that goes unanswered. So I don't know, between maybe ASPLU or Joanna, what systems and cultural supports are in place to reduce sexual assault among the student body? And is there any required education for students?
I can jump in first and talk about kind of as a student what I've gone through so far. So at the start of the year, I believe we do 2 online modules. So one is related to alcohol and then the other one is related to sexual assault. And so that includes kind of bystander training, active listening training, and it's something that we're required to go through. I think it takes about an hour for each of them. So that was something that all students have to go through. Also, student leaders on campus go through a specific in-person bystander training related to sexual assault. So that's also something that's specific. Carlos and I have experienced as ASPLU members.
Yeah, adding on, some resources on campus might be the Center for Gender Equity, which also has the PACE team, which is the Peer Advocate Community Organization. You know, they do a lot of workshops and trainings throughout the year. But most importantly, it's April. So April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And during this month, there's a lot of activities, right? Take Back the Night, some spoken words by different students. So there's definitely both, in terms of resources and advocacy, a lot of opportunities for students.
The other thing I wanted to add, Melody, I think in your question was the word culture.
Yes.
And that really stuck in my brain because I'm thinking, again, with my historical memory of being in this place for 22 years now, it's maybe 10 years ago now that PLU received a grant from the Department of Justice to launch a program to not only respond to sexual assault, but also prevent it, which is a cultural change. And we did such a nice job with that grant that we were one of 2 universities that was visited by the U.S. Attorney General. Who stopped at PLU to learn more about what we were doing. It was really innovative at the time. And now it actually pleases me to know that none of you mentioned that, because what it tells me is those early efforts have been woven into the fabric of what we do. So you don't even know that it was a major, major deal for PLU to get this grant to fund a victim advocate, right? To get the infrastructure in place to prevent and respond to acts of sexual assault. I'm really, really proud of the work we've done on that.
That's great. Thank you guys all for providing some background. It's nice to know. This kind of goes with, Gracie, you already talked about this in terms of at least the module that's also on kind of alcohol and drugs, but what systems and cultural supports are in place to discourage kind of other risky behaviors? So things like alcohol or drug abuse, things of that nature, just anything within, if anyone can think of something within the residence halls or on campus.
This is definitely more broad, but one thing I'd say to know about PLU, if you're going to take anything away, is just that there's such a community of care on campus. So there's so many resources available and people available who care so deeply about you as a student and your experience. So just know that there are lots of folks who care. But in addition to that, we have a care network. And so the care network is an opportunity to, I've used it before if I'm concerned about one of my friends or a student I know. You just send them that information, and then they'll follow up with that student and make sure they're doing all right and everything's taken care of. And it's a great mechanism to be active as a student in response to things like that.
Yeah, it really allows PLU to be proactive rather than reactive. So if someone, a faculty member or another student or even a family member is concerned about their student or a student they know, just they didn't show up for class today, or I know they've been sick, but I don't think they've been able to connect with the health center or something like that, you can put in a little care form. It's like 4 questions, and basically a group of individuals on campus who has access to students and resources connects that student. And I always, the Care Network always says, no one's been mad yet that we care for them. So I think it is this kind of, because it's proactive, it feels very supportive to students. So you can find it right on the homepage too. So it's really
Which is really intentional, going back to what Gracie said about our mission of care.
Yeah.
You know, we're walking our talk. And so we're putting this button right on the homepage so people can indicate if they're concerned about anybody in the community. I'll also toot our own horn here. You all might not know this. We've received national recognition for our care network.
Yeah, it was
the first university to launch something like that. Others have now replicated, which is great, right? It's flattering, but it's deep in our roots to care for community.
Yeah, no, it's always been my favorite word in the mission statement because I think it's so unique to a college campus. So we have also received questions. We know these are things that are weighing on everyone's mind, including ours, and that's, we are in a global pandemic and COVID-19 is causing us to be slightly unsure of our future. And so we had questions about just what are some of our thoughts and plans as it relates to residential life and the academic experience. So Joanna, do you want to start with the academic experience? Maybe some things that you guys are thinking about as we progress to fall.
Sure. We are thinking about everything you can imagine, from the logistics of our classrooms to how faculty will effectively communicate if they're wearing face coverings, to the class schedule. So let me give a couple of concrete examples.
Yeah.
We have plans for faculty who share a hallway. So faculty who are all teaching in the same building to coordinate with each other on their start and finish times, so that one faculty member might start 4 minutes late.
Right.
Faculty member who's their next door neighbor might finish 4 minutes early. So we can minimize traffic in our hallways and common spaces. We're also working on traffic flow patterns into and out of buildings. So that's just a super in the weeds example, the kinds of things we're doing. We are mapping out each classroom, like literally drawing a map with where the furniture needs to be, so that there's 6 feet between each students and 10 feet between the faculty member and the students, because we know the current research suggests that when people's voices are projected, that, you know, more stuff comes out. So we're being mindful of that, and we're going to accommodate our classrooms accordingly. We are also repurposing some of our spaces to use as classrooms that haven't been used before, but there are bigger spaces. So the classes that were in a large classroom before will now be in an extra large room that wasn't ever a classroom before, but it's going to serve that purpose. And I kind of picture every class just sort of moving up a notch and going into a slightly larger space. I should say also that, you know, because our average class, our student faculty ratio is 12:1, we're in a much better position to make these adjustments than some of our peers. We also have capacity in our classrooms as it is. Last fall, the data I just looked at, last fall, 76% of our classes had fewer than 25 students. So we've got small classes to start with, and we have capacity in those rooms already. So we're going to be able to make some adjustments for social distancing in the classroom. The other thing I'll mention is that we're working with faculty already to think about accommodations for students. So if a student needs to quarantine or self-isolate for a period of time, how do we make sure their learning isn't interrupted, right? If we're face-to-face, but a student needs to be remote for a reason, we're going to meet them where they are, because our commitment is to educate our students.
That's great to hear. I know there's been a few people asking, Joanna, and I don't know if you'll be able to answer this one, but has there been any thought to moving school early or later? Because obviously that's something that's been in the news.
Yeah, there's been tons of thought, and it sure has been in the news. So I don't know if you or any of the participants are aware that just last week, Dr. Fauci from the National Institutes of Health shared his conclusion that solutions for college campuses will not be one size fits all, which is very affirming for us who are making plans at PLU, because every time we see a new model that comes out for a campus of 40,000 students with lectures of 500, we think, well, that doesn't really apply to us. Why would we do that? Or schools that are changing their schedule so they can have an intense period. Well, we have that, it's J-term. So what we're really interested in doing, and what we are doing, is looking at all the variables that make PLU what it is and responding to those things. Our top priority is minimizing risk. As of this moment, we have no plans to alter the start date of the semester. You know, there's competing answers out there about when's the next wave going to happen. Is it going to be 3 weeks from now? Is it going to be September? Is it going to be November? We know we're going to have to respond in the moment. So we're going to go with our original calendar and just plan to be flexible as it is, rather than change the calendar and then have to make changes to that, because we know we'll have to. The other thing that we are still considering that's a very specific example of the calendar is post-Thanksgiving. We are still considering what to do with that post-Thanksgiving time. We are not going to end the semester early. We're required per accreditation to have 15-week-long semesters. But we're considering ways to minimize risk to community, and thinking about what it might mean if our students go home, if our faculty go visit family, if our staff do, what that might mean for returning to campus and how we can best minimize risk. So we're still thinking about post-Thanksgiving as a unique period that we might need to respond to.
Great, that was really helpful. Thank you, Joanna. Any thoughts on, I don't know if, Gracie and Carlos, obviously you're newer to your role, but I don't know if anyone knows about kind of residential life or has any thoughts on what's happening there as it relates to students returning to campus.
I can speak maybe not as much on residential life, but kind of as ASPLU, what we're doing in student life. And so ASPLU, we're hoping to do a lot of the same things that we were already planning on doing. We had a virtual election this year, so why not do that again in the fall? So those kind of operations we're still hoping will happen, but also it's a major election year, you know, in the United States. And so part of what ASPLU does on campus, like I've mentioned, is voter registration and voter turnout. So we're coming up with some pretty creative ideas for how to do that if we're not back on campus, or if we're in a hybrid form. So we're coming up with lots of plans in that regard, which isn't exactly residential life, but I think it's a cool part of student life. We get to be really creative and innovative about how we connect with students and really encourage connection in different ways. So Carlos and I have been doing a lot of brainstorming about that.
I actually do think it's allowed us all to think kind of creatively about how we connect to people. I mean, I think we'll do some of this next year, no matter what this looks like, because I love the idea that students who can't get to campus still get to connect with us in some ways. So, so yeah, I agree.
I can answer a little bit about residential life.
That'd be great, Joanna.
Carlos, I don't know if you had anything to add. Chime in after if you have more thoughts. We are in a very fortunate position with both our location in an area that has housing alternatives around it, and as a community that has residence halls that accommodate one person. So we have single occupancy dorm rooms. We're not a campus that has triple occupancy. We have singles and doubles. And we expect next year that we might have about 50% of our students living in singles, and about 50% living by choice in doubles. We have intentionally suspended our residency requirement for first-year students, knowing that while there's a lot of research that shows how much students gain from the residential experience, we fully support that, we still believe in it. We also know this is a period in time when students need to make the choice that works best for them. And so we expect what we call our population density to decrease a little bit as some of our first year students who live within driving distance choose to remain at home, because that's the best, safest option for them and their families.
Yeah, I think the one other thing I just want to add in, there's a great residential life FAQ on the university's kind of COVID-19 page. So they've answered, our residential life staff has done a great job of trying to also, much like Joanna described in the classroom, think about the spaces in the residence halls and how to still kind of have that community spirit that Gracie was talking about, but with some safety measures in place. And we did allow students to live on campus this spring. We were not a campus that closed down and said, everyone out tomorrow. So that allowed us to do was learn a lot. So
exactly.
Because we had to put in all of these different measures. And so, we're kind of appreciating that some of those students wanted that experience because we were able to learn together. They gave us great feedback. We were able to kind of process that. So I think it actually allowed us to learn quite a bit. So
I think so too. We kept the cafeteria open. So we have the partitions up, right? We have the taping for 6 feet between people in the line. Yeah, we're prepared.
Yeah, that helped. All right, so I'm just seeing if there's any other ones. Just a note on meal plans, our dining staff, who are also just amazing individuals. If you didn't get a chance to eat on campus, I'm sorry. I actually find the food to be really fantastic, and I'm missing quite a few of my favorite dishes lately. But they are also hard at work, much like Joanna said. They already did a bunch in the spring, but they're trying to figure out how to provide this great dining hall experience with social distancing. So they've put in some of those measures we already have, but they are changing some of our meal plans to allow more dine out. They're considering delivery. They're just really kind of taking feedback from students and applying that to what they can do. We are not a campus who actually uses an outside company to provide our food on campus. We have an executive chef and a department that builds that plan. And so I think it's allowing them to be very flexible and respond to the needs of our students in this time in a way that works for PLU. Whereas some of these companies, they're saying this is what we're doing on all college campuses. We're able to really kind of make that unique for us. So that staff is available for specific questions, but they're going to actually put out their own FAQ, I think tomorrow. So that'll be on that same COVID-19 page, and we'll make sure to send that out to prospective students. And then one more question that's related to this, in case we know, and again, we may or may not. Have we thought about mask wearing, hand washing, symptom awareness, kind of messaging across campus?
We absolutely have. And of course, we'll defer to the guidance of the county, the state, the nation. Right now, all directions point to everybody on campus will use a face covering when we're in indoor spaces. Other than, not in your private dorm room by yourself. I wouldn't in my private office by myself. But if you're with other people in shared space, we'll do that. It's a sign of respect. It goes back to care for community. So we will wear face coverings. We will also provide, this is surprise, Gracie and Carlos will be providing every member of our campus community with a face mask to kick off the academic year.
We're getting secret information on this webinar. This is great.
So face coverings absolutely will be expected, encouraged. Faculty are working on syllabus language to talk about that. We are also working with the faculty on, I don't know if any of you have seen this, Google this after this if you're interested. There are face coverings that have like a clear part so you can see their people's mouths.
Oh.
Which I think is really important for comprehension.
Yeah.
Right? So much about communicating with somebody involves lip reading, whether a person is hearing impaired or not. And so we're looking to see how can we make sure our faculty can communicate as effectively as possible with students while still being safe. So face coverings for sure. We have hand sanitizer. So many gallons of hand sanitizer ordered. We have signage. We have next week, we have a manual that's coming out for all employees about like return to work expectations. So yeah, we are planning to follow every public health guidance that there is.
Awesome. All right, there's one more question, and this might not be the group to answer it, but we can say we don't know because I know they're still talking about it. Do we know if athletics are happening in the fall?
Right now, the NCAA, so PLU is the Division III school, which is part of the NCAA. It will be an NCAA decision, or perhaps what with our conference, which is the Northwest Conference, which is a subset within the NCAA. Okay. Right now, both of those larger groups, of which PLU is a member, are saying we're moving ahead. It might look a little different, and you're probably seeing this if you're following any professional sports right now, right? Like the German soccer league. There might not be spectators, but there will be some form of athletics if the NCAA and the Northwest Conference have anything to say about it. It will continue in some way. We're sort of this is a thing where we wish we could say more definitively, but our answers are contingent upon what the rest of the conference says, because otherwise we could say we're going to keep playing soccer, but what if there's no other teams to play against? Yeah. So it's a group decision, and we're waiting for guidance from above.
All right. Thank you guys for taking some of those questions. I know they're weighing heavily on people's minds. So I think one of the things that I want everyone to know that's watching this is PLU is a place that's willing to communicate with you and dialogue about you, with you about these things. It's actually something you should come to expect at PLU. We like to tackle hard questions. And so definitely feel free to reach out to somebody specifically in residential life, dining, have your admission counselor help you connect with that person if you want to kind of hear from them directly. So we're going to, one more question before we're going to let everyone go to dinner. And we're going to end on hopefully a fun note. What's maybe one fun fact or something people wouldn't already know about PLU that you'd like to share? So it's a little tricky, but, and obviously, you know, maybe just some special secret place on campus or person that you should connect with. I don't know. Who wants to go?
I can jump in. This might be a fun fact that everyone already knows, because I know admissions loves this one. But PLU was the first American university to have study away programs on all 7 continents at the same time, which is just, I remember hearing that when I first came to PLU, it blew my mind. And then I found myself doing study away myself. And so if anybody wants to talk about study away, you can email me. I had a great experience. And so that's one of my favorite fun facts about PLU.
It is an admission favorite. I will take that one. Yeah. Did that spark anything for the two of you?
For me, I think on campus, you know, I like to go on walks a lot, and the forest area right on the lower UC, it's really calming and, you know, kind of like its own little world, apart from like our usual traffic up and down lower campus. So that's just kind of like my little place where I like to go breathe.
There's lots of good nature spots, that's for sure. Yeah.
I'm going to share 3 quick ones.
All right.
One is, if you imagine that I was actually standing on campus right now, I'd be on Red Square. And I don't know if you all know this, that if you skip a stone across Red Square, like you were skipping a stone in a lake or something, it makes a musical sound. Oh. I know. You'll have to try it next time you're on campus. So that's 1. 2, scones, which I don't know if I need to say anything more. PLU is renowned for its scones. They're so good. I can't wait for you to get to campus to try them. And 3, and a really timely example I've been thinking a lot about, is one of our alumni from the class of 1957 was one of the doctors who was responsible in many ways for the eradication of smallpox. Oh, and so wow. When I think about this moment that we're in as a global pandemic and our mission of service and care and the contributions students can make to the world, right now is the time I'm thinking about Dr. Bill Fagey and his legacy that was built on his experience at PLU.
Yeah. That kind of relates to mine. We do have this thing called, I think it's Loot Link, which is where you can literally reach out to alumni that have said you can, kind of all over the world. And it's kind of been fun. I've been hearing from students who have actually taken the chance, sent the email, because you got a little work to do, and have had some really wonderful connections with people in some like really cool positions across the United States and even in like London and all these cool places. So I think it's just take advantage of all those neat resources. So we totally appreciate the 3 of you taking time on your lovely Thursday evening to join us, and all of you who tuned in today. we've had fun. I've really enjoyed this. Actually, it went way faster than I thought it would. You know, I never know how these are going to go. I was telling them how warm it was in my room today. But we do have one more kind of final video overnight experience tomorrow, and we'll be in touch with you on that, and we'll follow up on any questions that you had. But please remember, your admission counselor is still your best friend, so reach out to them if something wasn't answered today. So with that, we'll all say goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you.